Tonight, cutting rates, but not the anxiety over the economy. Warnings from the Bank of Canada that it might not have enough tools left to help guard against tariff uncertainty.
There's nothing to cheer about here.
And the financial forecast ahead of next week's budget. What transpired over dinner between Trump-Carney and Donald Trump.
You know, the cheese slipped off the cracker. I get it. You're ticked off.
Plus the foul language tirade by the U.S. ambassador aimed at Ontario and who is demanding an apology. And fighting to seize control of the World Series.
Game 5 is underway with a fly ball to deep left. Gone! And now Guerrero rips one to deep left, and it's gone!
The Blue Jays' historic swings in Los Angeles before heading back home.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening. A sobering reality check on the state of the country's economy tonight. The Bank of Canada cutting its key interest rate and also warning that the tools it has to mitigate the impact of the trade turbulence are limited, adding that it can't restore the economy to its pre-tariff path. The central bank lowered interest rates to 2.25%, down 25 basis points. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver starts us off.
The Bank of Canada delivering a bleak outlook today, slashing growth projections as tariffs drive up costs for businesses and fuel uncertainty.
Part of it is structural. The U.S. has swerved to protectionism. It's harder to do business with the United States. That has destroyed some of the capacity in this country.
The bank is projecting Canada will narrowly avoid a recession, with growth just 0.75% for the second half of 2025, and the economy overall 1.5% smaller by the end of 2026 than initially forecast. To help ease the trade shock, the central bank has cut rates to 2.25%.
There's nothing to cheer about here. I think we're lowering interest rates because the economy is under immense strain.
For now, the bank suggests it's done lowering rates as long as its growth forecasts don't change and inflation remains around 2%. But with unpredictable trade policies south of the border, experts say change can happen fast.
If U.S. policy stays where it is, then we can have a little more confidence in these kind of projections. But of course, the president can wake up on the wrong side of the bed and suddenly Canada's in a recession.
Macklem acknowledges there's not much more the bank can do to put the economy back on a better growth trajectory. That's why experts say they'll be looking extra closely to see what policies and spending the government includes in next week's budget. Omar.
All right, Annie, thank you. And joining us now is CTV's chief financial correspondent, Amanda Lang. Amanda, on the one hand, the Bank of Canada governor is suggesting he's satisfied with where the rate sits now, but on the other hand, acknowledging how unpredictable conditions are. So what are the chances the bank makes yet another cut when it next decides in December or even in early 2026?
Omar, the central bank seemed to signal a couple of things here. It suggests that despite that strong labor market report we just saw, and the fact that inflation remains a little bit elevated, it's comfortable lowering rates again. But if it's sending a message, it's that we shouldn't expect many more in a rapid succession. Having said that, economists today are, some of them, still saying that we will see more rate cuts. And that's partly because they think the bank might have an overly rosy view of what happens in the economy. Remember, we still have all the wild cards of this trade situation and the effect of tariffs. And the bank is saying it's now going to be able to offer up a better forecast of what it thinks will happen. The expectation is nothing in December. The question next year is, as we reset our economy, and that comes at a cost, is that cost inflationary? Will the bank actually be worried about prices again? Some economists today saying actually the effects of this trade war will be damaging, and we might well see even more cuts in the months ahead. Some people might count on that. At the end of the day, the bank reiterated today what it said last time, which is it thinks it's done what it can on monetary policy, trying to persuade Canadians of price stability, that inflation is under control, but that the real work here has to be done by fiscal policy. In other words, the upcoming budget. Omar? And
you'll be joining us for special coverage on that day, November 4th. Amanda, thank you. We're also learning more tonight about what could be in that budget document. Here's CTV's Rachel Aiello.
We need to bring back the civil service to a sustainable level.
The finance minister previewing plans to reduce the public service. The size of and spending on civil servants has soared since the pandemic. And multiple sources tell CTV News the cuts the federal government is looking at making would be through attrition as well as workforce adjustments, including the possibility of incentives for early retirement.
We'll be very transparent with people, but we're going to be very compassionate in how we do it as well.
Though this plan could still be subject to change, as the sources also said the budget document hasn't been finalized. Potentially playing a role in the revisions still being made, the Liberals haven't secured the support they'll need to see whatever they propose pass Parliament.
So it's becoming pretty clear that the government is going to use their costly budget as an excuse for costly elections.
The finance minister's latest pre-budget talk about tough choices came after he committed to spend more than $500 million on equality initiatives today. Omar?
All right, Rachel, thank you. The Prime Minister is in South Korea for the APEC summit, and after tough talk earlier this week, Mark Carney came face-to-face with U.S. President Donald Trump at dinner. CTV's Judy Trinh on the tensions at the table.
A red carpet welcome for the Prime Minister as Air Force One loomed on the tarmac. Mark Carney was whisked away for a dinner invitation by South Korea's president. There was no denying who was the guest of honor. Earlier in the day, Lee Jae-myung presented Donald Trump with a replica crown and a medallion representing South Korea's highest honor. Carney and Trump didn't engage each other during the photo op before dinner, but at the table, they pointed to each other in acknowledgement, and Trump briefly locked eyes with Carney after the toast. At the table, Trump said what the Koreans wanted.
We had a tremendous meeting today with South Korea. We made our deal. We pretty much finalized a trade deal.
That's not the case for Canada, not after this anti-tariff ad.
America's jobs and growth are at stake.
Trump terminated trade negotiations 6 days ago and is threatening adding 10% tariffs on top of what Canada already has.
How was dinner, Prime Minister? You chat with the president at all, sir?
Very good. I had a very good conversation with all the presidents.
We don't know if Carney and Trump talked about resuming negotiations, but we do know that Carney will now focus on talks with Canada's second biggest trading partner, China. That takes place Friday. Judy Trinh, CTV News, Gyeongju, South Korea.
Ontario's premier is calling for an apology from the U.S. ambassador after the American diplomat launched an undiplomatic tirade against one of Doug Ford's senior officials. CTV's Abigail Beeman breaks down the war of words and what lit the fuse.
Two Ontario government sources tell CTV News that at an event Monday, the province's trade representative David Patterson stayed calm as U.S. Ambassador to Canada Pete Hoekstra laid into him with insults and bad language.
Come on, Pete, you've been around for before Moses. Call the guy up and apologize. Let's start getting back on track.
The two central characters aren't talking, but the premier weighed in classic Doug Ford form.
The cheese slipped off the cracker. I get it. You're ticked off. But call the guy up because you're a good guy and Dave's my champion.
America's jobs and growth are at stake.
The dressing down apparently over this Ontario ad featuring Ronald Reagan. The current president cites it as the reason to tear up trade talks.
It's important for Ambassador Hoekstra to be seen as swearing and cursing and losing his temper because he wants the president of the United States, his boss, to see that that's how he's conducting himself.
While the premier sticks to targeting a U.S. audience, writing in the Wall Street Journal he admires Reagan, and the ad was meant as an encouragement to embrace what has made our nations great.
What do they expect me to do? Sit back and roll over like every other person in the world? I'm going to fight like I've never fought before.
This whole good cop, bad cop thing, that's totally bogus.
The ad and the incident sparking chatter in the halls of power.
Your grandmother told you not to use the F word, right?
He's entitled to his opinion. I would say it indicates it was a pretty effective ad.
The U.S. Ambassador's office declined any comment for this story, including what Hoekstra thinks of the premier's call for an apology. Omar?
All right, Abigail, thank you. Canada says it is ready to offer humanitarian assistance to Jamaica and Cuba, two countries reeling from the disastrous effects of Hurricane Melissa, which has now killed at least 30 people across the Caribbean. The storm, which slammed into Jamaica Tuesday as a powerful Category 5, tore through the island. At least 8 people have been killed. Roads have been washed away, buildings submerged, the airport in Montego Bay destroyed. Satellite images showed the town of Black River on the southwest coast of Jamaica completely obliterated. Many Jamaicans sharing harrowing stories of survival.
I had to climb over a house, a wall, just to get shelter in another person's home, just so that I didn't drown.
Melissa made landfall in Cuba earlier today as a Category 3 hurricane, causing severe flooding and triggering landslides. People here in Canada can only sit and watch and wait for word from loved ones. CTV's Alison Hurst now on the hope and the helplessness.
Michael Ryan watches the catastrophic destruction and devastating aftermath of Hurricane Melissa that pummeled Jamaica.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Crazy, crazy, crazy. I've never seen nothing like that.
Ryan's niece lives in Kingston, which was spared the worst of it. But he says it's hard to see what happened to the places he used to call home.
And I see what's going on in Old Harbour Bay. Those are my kids' playground, down at those places. You know, I used to go to the beach with my mom to sell fish and buy fish. And when I see what's happening to Old Harbour Bay, it shook me up.
Tyrone Hamilton says he's been trying to reach his son and daughter, but so far nothing is getting through.
Very anxious and worried.
Videos sent to him from his sister show the airport near his home destroyed and a street turned into a river.
I really can recognize it just flatten out, just like the house top all flatten out, you know. So everybody house top leaking, so no aid there right now.
The Jamaican Prime Minister has declared the entire country a state of disaster, with homes submerged in water, others completely ripped apart, and infrastructure down.
Folks in Little Jamaica are directly connected to people in Jamaica. Relatives, families, friends, loved ones. I mean, it's really hard, and it's nerve-wracking and it's scary.
To help with relief, Anika Mark with Little Jamaica Community Land Trust has partnered with Reclaim Rebuild Eglinton West to organize a hurricane relief donation drive in the neighborhood on Saturday.
Some of the donations that we're going to need are clothing supplies, baby supplies, first aid kits, hygiene kits, batteries and flashlights.
All to help those now dealing with the cleanup.
Alison Hurst, CTV News, Toronto.
There has been a major deadly police operation in Rio de Janeiro, just days before the city is set to host a major UN climate summit. Public defenders say at least 132 people were killed and 81 arrested after a massive raid on a drug trafficking gang. 4 police officers are also among the dead. Hundreds filled the streets protesting the violence. The UN has called for an investigation into the deaths. Back here at home, a BC man has been arrested in a string of sexual assaults in Ontario dating back to the late 90s.
Advancements in DNA technology and resulting forensic analysis by the Centre of Forensic Sciences linked the 4 assaults to the same individual. That was the turning point.
Ontario Provincial Police say they also used genetic genealogy to lead them to 52-year-old Jason Timothy Davidson. He's facing 15 charges from 4 separate abductions and sexual assaults that happened in southwestern Ontario in 1997. 6 players from an under-14 hockey team in Stoney Creek, Ontario, have been placed on probation for 2 years. TSN senior correspondent Rick Westhead broke the story. And Rick, what can you tell us about the details?
Well, a lot of the details of what happened in that locker room are on our story on CTV's website and on TSN's website. To me, this is a story about the system. In this case, a coach was suspended for 6 months for having contempt of an investigative process, among other reasons. But his suspension by Hockey Canada was kept secret. It's only because of an appeal in the case that we ever actually learned about what happened here. And to me, the big story here is about this tendency across Canadian amateur sports for sanctions for misconduct, and I'm talking about amongst adults, that they're kept secret, which allows people to move around to unsanctioned program, to other jurisdictions, to other sports, without any true accountability. So this is a story about a system and a lack of transparency.
Rick, the subject of hockey culture is one you explore in your new book out next week called We Breed Lions. Your extensive reporting, you spoke to more than 50 hockey players, is part of this book. And it was your reporting that led to the landmark trial of World Junior hockey players earlier this year, which really led to a national reckoning for the sport and a conversation. Has anything fundamentally changed, would you say?
Well, I think it's still too early to say. We've been here before with scandals, right? Sheldon Kennedy in the 1990s came out with his story of sexual assault, and there was an immediate uproar. There were promises to change, but the news cycle moves fast. The public's attention is fickle, and before long, people had sort of forgotten about this uncomfortable subject and wanted to put it in the rearview mirror. I don't know what's going to happen here. The government's going to have the courage of its convictions to really, again, force organizations, whether it's a national sport organization like Hockey Canada, or whether it's provincial or local organizations, to have independent systems established for complaints to be reported and investigated, and transparency, so that people actually have, the public has a trust in the system.
All right, Rick Westhead's book, We Breed Lions, comes out November 4th. Rick, thanks as always. And switching gears, the Toronto Blue Jays ambushed the LA Dodgers and hunted down history in Game 5 of the World Series.
Here he comes, off and going Game 5 with a fastball that's hit in the air to deep left field. Call to the track. It's on the first pitch of Game 5. Very first pitch, and now Vlad Jr. hooks a ball down the left field line.
The Blue Jays are the first team to hit back-to-back home runs to start a World Series game. Also, major contributions from starting pitcher Trey Savage. The Jays seized control of the series with a 6-1 win. CTV's Adrian Gabriel is outside Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles again tonight. Adrian, the Jays started off strong and carried it right to the finish line tonight.
They sure did, Omar, and they did so in historic fashion. Let's first start with Trey Savage, the rookie Blue Jays pitcher, set a World Series record for a rookie with 12 strikeouts. He also set a record with 5 consecutive strikeouts for a rookie in a World Series game. Now to the first inning, those 2 home runs back-to-back. Davis Schneider, then Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That was the first time in a World Series game that it has started with back-to-back home runs. Unbelievable stuff. Now everything shifts back north of the border to Toronto. Game 6 is on Friday. Yamamoto will take the mound for the Dodgers. As expected, Kevin Gausman will take the mound for the Blue Jays. Canada's team are 1 win away from winning the World Series. We'll wait and see what happens on Friday night.
It'll be good to have them back on home soil. Adrian Gabriel in Los Angeles. Adrian, thanks. Coming up,
the provincial government has made this a national issue.
how the Alberta Teachers Union is planning to fight back after the province forced them back to class. Alberta's teachers were legislated back into the classroom today, but that may not spell the end of the province's labor troubles. As CTV's Kathy Lee reports, the Premier's use of the notwithstanding clause could lead to wider turmoil.
Honk if you support students!
Their passion palpable, determined to make their voices heard.
Class sizes, they're way too big.
Hundreds of thousands of students now back in school after being off for weeks during the teachers' strike.
We shouldn't have went back this early, but it's the government.
The Alberta government invoking the notwithstanding clause, forcing educators to return to work. The clause violates certain charter rights to pass the back to work legislation and blocks teachers' unions from taking legal action.
This has been the longest education strike in Canadian history. We were looking for a way to bring some finality to it.
The decision having a potentially large ripple effect.
The provincial government has made this a national issue. Because now suddenly the entire labor movement in Canada is very concerned, because their concern is, if Alberta gets away with this, will a government in their province be the next one to use this tool?
The UCP's decision eliciting a strong response from the Alberta Federation of Labor.
We will begin the process of organizing towards a potential general strike in Alberta,
which could mean hundreds of thousands of workers from various industries walking off the job. But these students not waiting for that to draw support in their fight.
I want to see the government listen to us more.
For what they need in the classroom. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
Still ahead, how a U.S. tech giant became the world's most valuable public company ever. Officials in Paris say 2 suspects arrested in connection with the heist at the Louvre have, quote, partially admitted to being involved.
Je veux garder l'espoir qu'ils seront retrouvés.
The suspects face preliminary charges of theft and criminal conspiracy. They're accused of breaking into the museum through an upstairs window while two others waited on the street below. The stolen jewels are worth more than $100 million US and have not been recovered. American AI chipmaker Nvidia has now become the world's first $5 trillion company, thanks to the global artificial intelligence boom. Nvidia shares have shot up more than 1,500% over the past 5 years, spurred on in part by the launch of ChatGPT in 2022. The company is now worth more than the GDP of every single country on Earth except for the US and China. Still ahead, crafting a happy Halloween, why a BC community came together to give a child a night he'll never forget. A BC boy is preparing for an extra special Halloween on Friday. The 5-year-old was forced to miss out last year to have heart surgery. CTV's Adam Sawatsky on his long road back to trick-or-treating.
If you ask Ian Itzma about his favorite thing,
Star Wars.
The 5-year-old will tell you all sorts of stuff about Star Wars.
So Luke Skywalker tries to kill Darth Vader.
But if you ask his mom, Natalie, about her most difficult days,
I mean, I was gutted. It was really hard.
she'll tell you all about when Ian endured his first heart surgery when he was just 2 weeks old.
And there still is times where we actually don't really know what his life expectancy is going to look like.
Preparing for Ian's third surgery was the hardest, his dad David says, because the then 4-year-old knew what was going on.
When he walks down the hallway to the surgery room saying, I'm scared, Mommy, I'm scared, Daddy, it breaks your heart.
On top of that, the only day the specialist could do the surgery was on Ian's favorite holiday, Halloween.
You get to dress up as anything you want.
When Ian's neighbors heard about the situation, they rallied together to organize something special a couple nights before the boy's surgery.
We had like almost 100 trick-or-treaters, yet Ian was the only one going door to door getting candy.
Ian! Ian!
Ian was too weak to walk too far, so after dressing up as an astronaut, the boy was rocketed around the neighborhood in a donated golf cart.
Knowing that they weren't getting anything on their end, they were just there just to support our little guy, melts your heart.
Along with a pile of candy, Ian received books and toys to keep him entertained in the hospital post-surgery.
And he just lit up, and just the smile on his face made everything just so magical.
Campbell! Ooh.
A year later, Ian is doing better than ever and looking forward to being out on a real Halloween night with his whole family wearing Star Wars costumes.
And what are you going to dress up as?
Jedi.
A Jedi?
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
As they say in a galaxy far, far away, the Force is strong with this one. And it turns out, in this community so close, the same can be said about this family and their neighbors. Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, North Vancouver.
What an amazing kid and community. That's a snapshot of this Wednesday. Heather is here tomorrow. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching and good night.